podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 188 for March 31st, 2010. iPad Reveal. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of MacBreak. We had to stop everything. We had to talk to Andy. Now, as you know, every time we chatted with Andy, we tried to push him. We tried to pull him. We tried to get him to say something. And he was good. He was too good for us. But the time has come for us to talk about the iPad, of course. So, Andy, is this it? Is this the illustrious iPad that we're looking at here?
Yes, it's lovely. As you can see, it's pretty much exactly the same as what Apple promised us in the ads and in the promotional materials. And I'm sure a lot of people are very upset now. So instead, I will do this. Yoink! Yes, it is indeed.
What a reveal!
Exactly. It's a thing called showmanship. Ask Lady Gaga; she understands these things. Yes, this is the actual real life.
I have to say that I can't help but say that I'm horribly jealous. I'm frustrated. I've been watching videos about it, and I'm almost out of my skin in anticipation. So now what are your first impressions of playing with this?
The very first impressions were that this is the start of something very, very new, that there's going to be a time when, I don't mean it to sound as big and momentous as it's going to sound, but that there's going to be a time when, just like we couldn't really remember what it was like to operate a computer solely via keyboard and F keys ever since we switched to a mouse, that there's going to be a time when not that we didn't remember what it was like to use a mouse and a keyboard, but that we didn't understand what it was like when mobile computers were not like this.
Right.
Because it's such I've used tablets before. This is not my first tablet device. I've been using them for about 10 years now. This is the first one, though, that is so successful at what it does that you would voluntarily use it instead of any other computer in your house for many, many, many situations.
Well, that's been the thing. The more I've thought about it, and it's been hard because I haven't seen anyone actually use it. I haven't seen anyone actually work with it. But it just feels like when I start thinking about every day now, I've been thinking about what would I use the iPad for versus my laptop. And I just feel like 90% of my day is really something I could do on my iPad.
That's probably very true. Now, why is the focus so weird? I'm sorry, I'm just talking to myself.
No worries.
That should be a much better. That should be much sharper. Sorry, I'm using the special high def, really super cool camera to try to make it look a little bit better. Yeah, well, it's not just a content. It's not just a content device. It is actually just a full featured computer. The first piece that I've put up on suntimes.com, there's going to be like 5 different pieces coming up in the next 12 hours, is just answers the question: is it a real computer? And if you are considering if you got money to spend, are you going to be getting would you like to get the iPad? Would you like to get a netbook, or are you going to get a notebook? They're 3 completely distinct machines with different pros and cons. The difference is that now it's not as though the iPad is going to dislodge the netbook or any other computer from the marketplace. The more you use this, the more you're aware that there was always this profound gap in the computer lines that now there's an iPad shaped hole in the entire line that now has been filled because there are times when you don't need a keyboard, you don't need a mouse, you just want the content to be the absolute star. And there are also times when you want to have the ability to you have no real intention of using a real computer because you don't feel as though you're going to need it. You're just headed to the coffee shop for about an hour just to bomb around, maybe read some mail, maybe check out some websites, read some books. But then the situation, your situation changes a little bit, and then you're glad that you have an application like Pages. You're glad that the app has, that you have a device that's by definition a touch-based computer, but which also will have a really good on-screen keyboard. Let me see if I can bring that.
Were you typing that, or what was it? What was?
I've got this connected to the keyboard dock. So it will work with either the Apple keyboard dock or any Bluetooth keyboard. I actually think that the better buy between the keyboard dock and this is to actually get the Apple wireless keyboard. It's just a standard Bluetooth keyboard because, as you can see, it's just as tiny and just as compact as the keyboard dock. But the dock has one thing that I really don't like about it. That I'm going to turn this thing around so you can take a look at it. That to support the weight of the iPad, it's actually all fused together like this into one single surface.
So it's going to be hard to carry with you.
Exactly. It's going to be almost impossible to carry with you. As a matter of fact, when I made a special trip to pick this baby up, along with the instruction, the non-disclosure agreement that I signed, and the agreement that no one, I can't really use this openly or or let people see it openly. And so now I've got this backpack that I thought was going to be plenty big enough for the iPad and a couple accessories, but the keyboard comes in this big honking box, and it's this weird L-shaped sort of thing that just does not fold down or travel or anything like that. And I really filled up this huge expandable backpack just with the bulk and the odd shape of some of these devices.
Well, and that's the thing that I worried about, and I can definitely see myself being more interested in some kind of stand with the Bluetooth. I wasn't sure how well that Bluetooth would work, but because to me, having the keyboard is because I want to sit on a plane and possibly work on an article or work on something like that, and you want to take that dock with you, but it really looks like it's something more made for your home, not necessarily for the road.
Exactly. I really think the purpose of the keyboard dock is just to have something in your office if you're going to be using this just sort of as a casual use computer setup in your living room or something like that. Because it's nice to have an integrated dock. The other nice thing about the docks in general, and this is also true of the non-keyboard dock, is that it has multiple connectors in the back of it, not just baby, go to sleep, baby, not just a audio jack, but also another dock connector. So you can, for instance, I think you're going to see a lot of these in conference rooms and places like that, where people are going to want to be connecting in like their camera connector and other things like that. I guess I haven't actually tried. I do have the presentation adapter, but the VGA adapter, I have not actually tried what happens when you plug it into the dock. Because the presentation adapter, the right here, the VGA connector, has one limitation in that it can't unless you're going to turn your projector on its side. That's not going to work. So you have to use the machine in landscape mode for that. So I actually didn't even bother seeing what happens when you plug this into that.
And by the way, a couple of people on the IRC are asking where Leo is at this momentous occasion. And Leo, we were kind of surprised by this opportunity, and Leo was not available. So I came rushing up.
Again, that's the terms of the embargo that I was under. It was really, really difficult because I simply had to say, I don't know what you've got planned for tonight. I have a feeling that I might have something to say, interesting, but I can't tell you what it is, and I can't tell you what time. Even the time that the embargo was going to lift was also under embargo. The fact that I was under embargo, also under embargo. So
absolutely, and so Leo wasn't available. I was more than happy to come up and see this now. Andy, a couple things. Have you played with many applications other than the Word, pages and numbers and those types of things? What other applications have you played with?
Well, at this stage, let me launch the App Store for you. At this stage, the App Store is active, but it hasn't really been populated yet. It just has a handful of apps that are out there, chiefly so that guys like us who are reviewing this can see what it's like to download apps. There's probably maybe about a dozen of them out there right now, including a Twitter client, including OmniGraffle is. How did
OmniGraffle work? That was actually one I was really fascinated by.
Well, I have not. I've tried OmniGraffle in Simulator. I have not downloaded it yet because these demo machines are the complete working thing. However, I do have to plug in my own user ID, my own Apple Store ID in order to make purchases, and that's a $50 thing. And I don't really have much interest in OmniGraffle. I'll show you. I'll show you something that's really quite successful. This is what's going to sell these things. Yes, it is air hockey for the iPad. And this is the reason why. This is the reason why basically productivity kind of this is my Plants versus whatever.
Yeah. Oh man. And it's big enough to do this. You really couldn't do this with the iPhone. I mean, I think that's the thing, is that there's a lot of things that we could see were possible with the iPhone, but it just wasn't big enough. It just wasn't quite. Now, Plants vs. Zombie is not available yet?
I haven't seen it yet. Now, there's obviously on Saturday, I'm sure we're going to see a big explosion in apps. Apple has promised a substantial library of applications are going to be available on launch day. Yeah. As a matter of fact, today I got a whole bunch of sample videos and press releases and just email shout outs from developers saying, hey, our app got approved. Good. We're going to be available on Saturday. If you already have an iPad, you have an ID, device ID, let us know because we can get this going for you.
Right.
But yeah, there's so many different things about this that are just totally going to blow your mind. Like, of course, Scrabble, obviously you're thinking that, the idea of having Scrabble on a real big playing board, already that's a huge win. But it's a great demonstration of how sophisticated the APIs are in here. Let me just tap that so you can just yes, let's restore that game. So already you're doing just fine, just having this big layout in which you can just pull letters and drag them out there. But ad hoc networking through Bluetooth is a huge feature of the iPad. So this is what the Scrabble app can do. Yes, it's a commercial application, a commercial game, and if you want to play it with like 3 or 4 friends, you can do so just through this application. But these people behind Scrabble, they realize that a lot of your friends probably have iPod Touches and iPhones, and so they've released a free Scrabble client, or they're going to release a free Scrabble client for the iPhone and the iPod Touch, so that if you're at the cafe or whatever and sitting around this table, you can run these client applications, and this iPad Touch, this iPad, and these 4 iPod Touches will essentially be one big collaborative Scrabble system where each player's individual iPhone will have their own private Scrabble rack, and then you can rearrange the tiles, you can get your own private score, player with certain.
So they're not necessarily seeing the whole. They're looking at your iPad, so they can sit around your iPad and then add things.
The only in this multiplayer mode, like right now, there's no one else using this with these iPod and iPhone client apps. So this is just the entire thing, and so you'd have to pretty much pass this around. With these client apps installed, it's just like playing regular Scrabble because you have your own iPhone that only shows you your own rack tile, and the only person who can see that rack is you on this private personal device. And so when it's your turn to play, you can rearrange them just like you would in Scrabble. When you decide what tiles you want to play, you just simply flick them off of the iPhone, and then they simply land on the board, and then you can just simply lay them out. And there are a bunch of games and a bunch of apps that will work exactly that way. Zero configuration, zero permissions, zero nothing. It just simply recognizes that there are these client apps within the immediate vicinity, and yes, let's all play Scrabble together.
Wow. That's yeah. And Scrabble, this is a big thing for Scrabble because there was another application, I can't think of the name of it right now, that had really taken, had done basically Scrabble online and Scrabulous and they really needed to take that back. I mean, they needed to create something that was compelling. That looks great.
Yeah. See, this is I hate to just show you games, but this is going to be the ultimate gaming platform.
Yeah.
This is almost like having like a portable Wii with you, because if you imagine how well this will work with a racing game.
Oh no, I'm starting to get the idea.
Right. So you're steering just by tilting the touch. I've got this on auto. I've got this on auto accelerate. I've got to brake myself though. But yeah, this is why. Now I have to let me point out how bad the situation was for me, because I picked this up in New York. I had a 3.5 hour. See, I'm trying to talk.
Train that you couldn't.
I'm a distracted driver. Yes. So I was 3.5 hours on a train home. I had this with all these games and apps like installed in my bag, but I had to leave it inside the bag. Sometimes life is There are people who suffer more than I do, but sometimes you feel as though there's nobody who suffers more than you do.
I know. I have like 6 flights next week, and I'm just like, I'm going to be on those flights, and I'm not going to have any problem taking it out and noodling with it. Now, is there anything that you felt was lacking Well, is anything missing for you that you really go, oh, I really wish they had added something?
There's the way that it handles files is it's decent, it's acceptable, but it's not brilliant, and it's not the best you can do. A couple of developers were telling me about how they understood files to work on the iPad a couple of months ago, which filled me with a lot of joy. But the reality is a lot more restrictive. Apple feels as though having an unrestricted file system that the users can tamper with and which other apps can tamper with leads to nothing but trouble. And so for that reason, there's a lot of control that they retain that will not allow you to. So if you want to put your own documents on this thing, there are a couple of different conduits to do it. The easiest way is to do it via iTunes, where right in the Applications tab, it shows up in iTunes just like another device, similar to an iPod or an iPhone. And there's an Applications tab. The new twist is that each application also has a little pane inside its little preferences that if this application is capable of exporting and importing files, you can simply drag files into that in settings, and it will simply be copied into that application's private.
Can you drag them out of there as well? So if you're saving pages, documents, is that where you get them?
If you import a document into Pages, it becomes a Pages document. You then when you go into your own personal library, then oops.
How do you get them back out of Pages after you've typed them?
I'm about to tell you. You do have to use an explicit export command.
Okay.
It's not as though there's a free floating folder. But the way in which it is not a lose is that the operating system also understands the idea that certain apps can claim certain file types, and there's also a universal feature that is available to developers that will allow one app to sort of allow the user to do something productive with a file. The most visible way of doing this is through the mail client. I better not show you my personal mail. That is my personal mail. The best way to do that is through the mail client, where if someone emails you a Word file as an attachment, it will use the built-in quick look feature to simply, without even having to launch another application, show you the contents of that file and let you read the whole thing. If you then want to edit it, there's a button called that'll be labeled open with, and at that point the app simply asks the operating system, great, this person wants to open this Word file, give me a list of all applications on this device that have told the OS that it's capable of dealing with Word files. It will present you with a list, and then you explicitly have to tap which application you want to launch with this thing. Right. So it's not as though you double click on the file and then it launches like an application automatically. Application launching has to be done explicitly by the user, so the user feels as though they have a certain amount of control there.
Question. Couple questions from the IRC. One is experience of battery life. What's your experience with the battery life?
Battery life is freaking awesome. Usually Apple promises 10 hours of battery life, and usually you either have that or 2/3 or 3/4 of it. You know that's probably a best case scenario. But I did a 100% to 0% drain in two different modes. The first time I tried to be as aggressive as possible in power drain. I had the screen brightness all the way up. I had the volume. I was using everything through the speaker, and I had the volume all the way up. And throughout the day, I was watching movies. I was getting mail. I was doing playing games. I was transacting via Wi-Fi. And even with the most aggressive use I can imagine, I was getting between 6.5 and 7 hours worth of use. When I simply dropped down to something more practical, I set this brightness to, now this brightness is at 1/2, so this is at 50%, and it's perfectly readable and perfectly great. The volume I set down to half, and when I watched a movie on it, I actually listened to the headphones, and I got 11 hours of battery life out of it. Wow. So very you good. Can absolutely count it. So it was amazing how quickly I fell into the mode of, oh yes, the iPad. I'll just take the iPad with me. Oh well, yeah. I don't need it to take my notebook into the living room while I watch MythBusters. I'll take the iPad. That's what I'll do.
What about so question? Have you been able to test? We were talking some of the issues around the VGA output. Is it something that is dedicated only to the app, or is it something that do we get to see the display? Is that possible?
No, it's a feature that has to be explicitly supported by the app. Also, the external display is something very, very special. It's not a mirrored display. It is the application designer is going to have to consider what do we want to have when this adapter is plugged in. What do we want to have on this screen that someone who has control of the interface will want to control, and what do we want to throw up on that external display? For instance, in Keynote, if you have this plugged in, obviously the external display is going to show your presentation, whereas this is going to show you in landscape mode a rack of all your slides. You can scroll through and see what you're going to teleport, from place to another.
Right.
A controller, so you can go back next. It also has a virtual laser pointer, just a little like virtual trackpad, so that you can sort of hold down and drag, and it will draw like a burning red dot in the middle of the screen, so you can sort of illustrate what you're doing.
Did you try any real keynotes? Did you push it at all as far as the keynote display? The reason I'm asking is that I'm trying to weigh whether I'm going to try to do my NAB presentations from my iPad, just because I can.
It looks beautiful. It pumps out at full HD resolution, the full resolution of the iPad.
Right.
If you're putting it onto if you go from this onto a widescreen HD display, you can't control whether it gets window boxed or stretched. It will be stretched and distorted to fit the dimensions of the widescreen aspect ratio. But otherwise, it looks absolutely perfect. The only drawback to it is that you cannot load in your own fonts onto the device. So you're limited to the 33 or 34 fonts that are built into the system.
Do you think that's going to be something? Do you think as we get into this thing where we're creating stuff, do you think that's going to become more of an issue? What happens if I create a Pages document, for instance, that is got a specific font, and then I bring it into here? Am I going to lose that font? Is it going to get converted to Helvetica?
When you round, I believe it or not, I haven't round tripped a font that has custom fonts. I was only doing that with Keynote presentations and other things. I think that the mode that you want to get into, at least with the Pages application, is that you're not there to write a 40-page report on this. You're there to take the 40-page report that you started in another system, do your edits, write another 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 pages, and then spit it out again. It's sort of something for carrying it around, editing it, creating it, manipulating it. I'm absolutely 100% certain, though, that before too long, if not as soon as Saturday, we're going to see a suite of very, very muscular Office apps for this device, because Keynote and Pages and Numbers, they're very, very sophisticated. There's a lot that you can do with them, including making pretty complicated documents and pretty complicated reports. Here's a sample that. Well,
and I, part of one of the things we were talking about on the show was that I feel like that Pages is one of the perfect ways to create documents or even ebooks for the iPad. Now, if you can do it in the iPad, I think that creates some kind of circular loop.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I agree with you.
Okay.
I don't think that Apple will see this as a lifestyle computer, as a destination in and of itself.
Right.
I also don't think that Steve Jobs would do to the Macintosh with the iPad what he did to the Lisa line with the Macintosh. Right. Because now he's the CEO of the company. He has no one to. He'll be cutting off his own nose by doing that.
Right. Now the other question's heat. Is heat really an issue? Is it something you can set on your legs and not get uncomfortable? Is it?
It is an absolute non-issue. There is no heat being generated from this at all.
Wow.
It is as cool to the touch at the end of 3 hours as it is at the beginning. At the end of a 2-hour movie, it is the exact same temperature as it is at the beginning. And of course, no fan, so it's absolutely silent. But one thing I wanted to show you, look how fast the scrolling is on this.
Wow.
It is like you cannot get faster than this.
Oh, it just looks like a window into another world.
I'm doing this now. Watch as I do that. Which is faster?
Right.
So it is just as fast as just doing a camera zoom in and out. For that reason, this browser is uniquely. It is as good as any web browsing experience that I've had anywhere else. Because I just love the fact that navigating through the page is so fast and so quick and so easy. For instance, even on a desktop. Like this is how I usually read my comic strips. This website that finds the RSS feeds and builds RSS feeds from content. And sometimes you certainly have to just scroll in and out. You have to hit command keys to zoom in and out. With this, you just sort of tip it in. We're good. Okay, done with that.
So now this brings up a key question, though. I mean, because you're the perfect person to tell us. Have you been able to try any kind of look at any comic books on the iPad?
Not really. Unfortunately, there just aren't any apps for that. And the iPad is just a terrible, terrible device for that. I mean, if only like a comic book company would ever like develop their own custom app for selling content on the iPad.
Right.
Unfortunately, I mean, that's just never going to happen. I mean, I put together this mock-up of what a Marvel Comics reader app would look like if they were ever write a custom app for the iPod. I mean, I suppose you'd be able to navigate through content like that. And if you like this issue, you could simply tap a download button, and it would be delivered to your device just that quickly and just that easily. And then when you're finally done with it, you could just, go through all your comics and just read them one at a time. But of course, that's just crazy talk. I mean, I like to live in this fantasy land where such things are even possible. I mean, yes, this was a big surprise. I have a lot of apps that have not been released yet and have no release dates yet. Some of the stuff is actually pre-release. So I did not know about the Marvel Comics app until it simply appeared on my iPad, on this iPad.
Right.
Apple has been this device came to me preloaded with content because they were also not able to get me a copy of iTunes 9.1, which is absolutely necessary for putting your own custom content on the device.
Right.
So they started me off by just getting this thing like set up the way that some people would use it. And you can also tell that there must be certain apps that they're particularly proud of that they think get it in terms of what the iPad should be and what the interface should be like, because they certainly didn't put junky applications on there. But this is just absolutely done correctly. When you have this set up to in portrait mode like this, the comic book page is about 80% the size of on this screen as it would be on a printed page. But the display is so good that you can easily read all the panels and all the pages.
How was your experience of using this outside, inside? Compared, of course, it's going to get compared to the Kindle.
Right. Well, let me finish showing you this.
Sure.
This also has a really cool mode that I enjoy, where if you don't like having it all scrunched down like that, if you're in landscape mode, you just do next page, back page. It will just steer the camera from panel to panel and moment of action and moment of action. So, my goodness! And this is just the first comic book application that we've seen live on the iPad. And I could not put my own content on it. Marvel has many fantastic books, and many of them are available through this store. But I'm like, I want Amanda Conner's Power Girl issues 1 through 10 on my iPad. I haven't only seen the first 3 episodes. Can I get Watchmen on the iPad, sir? But this is I'm sure that as soon as people see this, and this is the Marvel Comics app. I haven't reviewed it yet because it's pre-release, but I felt that it was cool enough that I had to write about it, at least as a preview. And so that's another piece that's going to be up on Sun Times tonight or tomorrow morning. It's actually in the hopper. We have like time bombs set to each one of these pieces. But yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Well, as a recap for some people asking, this is, of course, we are covering the new iPad. I'm sitting in for Leo, and we're here with Andy Notko from the Chicago Sun-Times, and his embargo was lifted, and we had to jump right on that opportunity to make sure that we got to the Twit listeners or Twit viewers, got this out to them as soon as possible. Now, one other question that's coming up a couple times on the IRC is printing. Have you tried printing from your iPad?
It's a very simple procedure. You just take it as it is. You lay it on top of any flatbed scanner. You scan the image as it is, and then you print it from the Mac. No, it does not support in any way, shape, or form printing.
Really? So there's no way to get out of it?
There is no way to get out of it right now. There is now. There are iPhone apps that will print via Wi-Fi. Or through other bits of trickery. I'm sure we're going to see that happen soon enough. But
it just seems surprising. It seems almost amazing that Apple, who can do, of course, I mean, you're on a Wi-Fi network. You've got printers that are hooked up to Wi-Fi networks. It seems crazy that Apple wouldn't be able to print to those printers from the iPad.
Well, the difficulty there is simply that. How do you deal with the idea of having like 100 different device drivers on this device? 100 different device drivers that Apple is certainly not going to trust Epson and HP and the rest of those guys to write for them. What will it do to the stability of the device? What will it do to the capacity of the device? The alternative that I was thinking is, well, fine, Apple. So just have a client app that goes onto the onto Windows and Mac that will simply allow this device to simply find this print server over Wi-Fi, send it a PDF of what it thinks the thing should do, then have that client app simply grab that PDF and then print it using whatever the local printer driver is.
Right.
But maybe they simply there comes a time when they have to have. You imagine that discussion that they're having in the conference room, like early on in the development, where they simply have to make the decision: is this going to be used like a desktop computer, or is this going to be used as an accessory to a desktop computer, or are we designing something that is going to have its own definition that we can make our own rules?
And I think that's a key thing. I think that part of what I looked at when I see this, I just feel like this could be a replacement for a desktop or a laptop for many, many people. But without the ability to print, that means that everyone's still got to be tethered somewhere.
Well, I think that if you're using this is a piece that the first piece that hit suntimes.com. I spend about 2,000 words explaining the pros and the functional pros and cons of the iPad in relationship to netbooks and notebooks. And one of the conclusions that I feel I have to come to after a week of using this is that if you want to use this as a prime computer, you're probably going to be disappointed because it's a fallacy that the iPad does not do multitasking. Of course, it does do multitasking. If you can play music, you can play music in the background. If you've rented or purchased a movie via iTunes, the download you can go away from that application and start web surfing or use any other app, and the download will continue in the background. However, even if you are using multiple apps at the same time, it's still a one screen, one window at a time interface, and that is kind of a bummer to get through when you've got to, when you want to look something up on Wikipedia or look something up on a newspaper site, get that data out, then move it back into Pages or move it back into the report that you're working with. It's just a big freaking hassle. Also, the big deal about the iPad for a lot of people is it's probably going to be the single most stable computer you own. It's going to be the one computer that never freezes up, the one that never needs to do a hard reset.
Well, but it has.
I think I've hard resetted it about once a year, and so you just don't want a complication to come in that will just screw that up for you. Well, the only exception that I would make for it is that if you do have like a relative who only wants a computer to do the web, to do the email, occasionally write some letters, that's going to be perfectly okay. The only things that you don't need to necessarily tether this to a desktop to make it work. The only thing you absolutely cannot do with it is you can't do a backup from it until you tether it to link it to a desktop machine. Also, you can't apply a system update until you tether it to a machine. So it's credible. There are a couple of limited situations in which you can use it as a replacement for a conventional computer, but mostly you should think about it as an iPad.
Well, now as an iPad. So there's been a lot of talk about the price and the availability of newspapers and magazines. Have you been able to take a look at some of those?
Newspaper apps have not shown up yet. Neither have magazine apps at this point. The iBook store is open with a great many titles, but a great many categories are also missing at this point. For instance, I was happy to find that one of my favorite books was available for it already. It seems like every time I buy a new device every time there's a new format for reading something, I have to buy Michael Palin's memoirs in it because it's just so.
You have it in every version.
Exactly. I have it on Kindle. I bought it on iBooks. I knew that's one thing I could definitely want to have fun with and read. I've got it on audiobook. I've got it on paper. Let's go back to the store. Unfortunately, the last time I checked, which was this afternoon, they haven't really populated all the categories yet.
Right. So now again, and also coming back to the question of you're outside. You open it up, you want to read it. Are you comfortable outside? Is it readable? How does it compare to the Kindle?
Well, yeah, Kindle's been talking a little bit of trash, saying that, or they're trying not to acknowledge that the iPad actually exists, while acknowledging that they're scared spitless about it. So there's an ad that's actually on the. There's an ad that's actually. Oh, that's the first time I've ever seen an app not launch. Interesting. So they're making the point that hey, this is readable even in bright sunlight. And they have a picture of like the now the famous, like with all these like hardware demos, like for phone demos, the famous explain in hand,
right,
yoink, yoink, holding a Kindle at the beach. So
right.
It was Saturday and it was a intensely bright sunshiny day with not a cloud in the sky. So even though it was 28 degrees outside, I drove to the beach. and tried to see how easy it is to read the Books app on a bright sunny day, and it's perfectly readable. It's not the optimal display possible for this device, but I would.
But neither is in the beach. I don't know. For me, neither is a book. It always seems like it's too bright anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I was going to say is that I would liken it to like a Kindle in indoor lighting without having a book light or something going directly on it. It's readable but suboptimal. Obviously, the optimum circumstance for a Kindle is at the beach in bright sunlight. But frankly, I'm very, very rarely in bright, intense sunlight reading a book. Usually, it's in a room like this, where or in a car or in a coffee shop or something like that. And frankly, I would much rather have a device that has its own built-in book light than have something that I have to turn something on and angle it. If there's one thing that affects the display performance, it's just the fact that this is a very glossy screen. So it's not a case of, I don't want people to think that it's a case of finding the one angle which you can read it well at. It's more like avoiding the one angle where you can't read it at.
Right. Now, and also some questions from the IRC. People are asking, can you change the color of the text? Can you change the color of the display, for low visibility users and people who just want to flip the text or invert the text?
Indeed. There's a great many usability. Where is it? I think it is in accessibility. There we go. There are a great many features here. You can switch this to a white on black display, just like that. It also has speakable items built into it. It has text zoom. So it'll, instead of having zoom just affect web page and stuff like that, it will simply zoom the entire display to make it easier to read. For if you have a low vision, also you can turn on a mode in which it will just speak. It will sort of make the first tap that you do on anywhere not to be an actual user interface tap, but simply a speak whatever I've got on my finger right now, and then it's the second tap that will actually register as the click. For people with poor hearing, poor sight, poor vision, there's lots and lots of features in here. It'll also speak any page in the book. I did test it out. It won't read the entire book for you, but you can just simply flip a page and then it will read that book, that page. Only one voice is available. So you don't get the full category.
Who do you collection. Get? Who are you stuck with?
Oh goodness, it is a dame. Nope, that's oops.
It's interesting that there'd only be one voice for it.
Yeah, it is. It's a woman that has the same accent as whatever localization you have chosen for that for the device.
Okay. Now I had another question and now I lost it. I'm
That's okay. There's one thing I want to go back to though, is that I keep double checking the categories because the bookstore has a number of books in it, but it's not fully stocked yet. And so the number of categories here is pretty enticing. You can imagine how good like cookbooks are going to be with this full color screen, but it also has where is it? Oh my God, they have removed something.
What did they take out?
Double check. There used to be a comic books, a graphic novels section here, but it has been removed. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, see, that's something that I was really keen on checking out because I always thought that the smart way to do that would be to let companies like Panelfly and iVerse and Comixology. Comixology, by the way, are the makers of that Marvel app. If you look through the Get Infos, there's an acknowledgement that they're using Comixology's engine. I always thought that starting last year that was the smart way for them to do it because the needs of a comic book reader are going to be so much different from the needs of a standard book reader. So I was curious to see how come that was now its own category here and how they would actually do that. So it looks like that. I'm guessing then that was just a placeholder that has now disappeared. Isn't that interesting? A bunch of new categories seem to have arrived too. I have a couple screenshots that I took how these things work. Oh, one other thing that I should mention, which is I was really curious to see if this would be the case. Almost all of these books also have a free sample available, so you can download and try before you buy. Just right here, I've just chosen to download the sample of the Top Secret Restaurant Recipes Volume 2. I'll see if I can follow the story, even though I've missed Volume 1. I also noticed that a lot of these samples are really generous. One sample book had 132 pages to it. Give me a recipe. Come on. There you go. There's the Applebee's mudslide. There you go. You can make all kinds of adjustments. You can make the font size.
This is still just a basic book that's put there. I mean, what's really going to be interesting is when book companies really start to customize for this and really start to find ways to use this. I mean, I really think that some voice activation mixed with some good recipes could really add up to a great cooking experience.
It definitely could be. I saw an app. I don't think it's on here, but I saw there you go. I'd be curious. So that's probably more like what you're talking about, a dedicated app that has all kinds of extra media on it. For instance, over here, you have a much more colorful list of recipes. There's the tangerine and prosecco sorbet. And here's the ingredients just on one separate list here. Mm-hmm. I believe it also has some, when I get the ingredients back, you can just pull that back. So it's a good thing to actually have. You can move, as you make your way through the recipe, you can sort of move this marker to where you were, where you are, and actually putting this together. See, it's going to be interesting to see the division between the limitations of what you can do with an EPUB document in the iBook store and the breaking point at which certain content providers are going to say, okay, you know what, we have a vision for this content that goes far beyond what this app is letting us do.
It's funny. I was talking to, I ended up on my long bus ride here. We were in the rain. It was very delayed, and the person sitting next to me happened to work at a publishing company, and so of course everyone's talking about it. And for them, applications are what they're going to have. They decide they're going to build. They're very graphic. The stuff that they're doing. They just said, a ebook is not going to do what we want it to do. That we're going to have to move to developing some kind of custom application or series of custom applications. It's just not going to work.
Again, I'm glad to see that these guys are going to have the choice of making whatever sort of app they want.
Right.
In many ways, this is the ultimate. That's another piece that's on the Sun Times. It is the ultimate ebook reader in the sense that there is nothing that this device cannot read for you.
Right.
This has only a fraction of. Apple has told me, I believe, that they're going to have 60,000 books upon the opening of the iBook store. 30,000 of those are public domain titles from Project Gutenberg. Meanwhile, Amazon.com was only too pleased to tell me that they have 450,000 titles in their library. But the thing is that they've also announced they're coming out with an iPad application. So any book that's available through Amazon will also be available to your iPad via this second app. You'll have to launch a different app in order to read it. But it seems as though if you want one device that will rule them all, that will be able to read any sort of content that you ever want to get a hold of, your choice is going to be the iPad.
It really seems like this is really the first. A lot of people have called themselves this, but this seems like it's really the first convergent device, like the truly convergent. Play anything, look at anything. Not anything, but all the different forms of media. It just seems like it's. That's handheld and easy and really part of that process.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't know. I don't know if that's the way you felt. That's the way you felt or not. It just seems like as a truly consumer device. Like I want to consume media. I want to consume any kind of media, and I want to do it comfortably.
Exactly. You see, it's really. And I should mention that my frame rate is a little bit low right now. This is. Video playback is completely smooth and perfectly high definition right here. It's what I love about the iPad is what I loved about the original iPod. There's a reason why the original iPod was given this vague name that can mean anything, because they wanted to create the impression that you could do anything you want with this device. It wasn't just an MP3 player that eventually it'll be for all kinds of different content. And so this is damn near close to the one device that you can always carry with you and always have a solution at hand. It'll be a really great document cabinet. It could be used for all the books that you're reading. It could be used for all the music that you're listening to, all the movies you're watching. There's I can't think of a single form of media that this cannot handle.
And PDFs? Did you play with PDFs? How did it work? Okay.
PDFs do work within QuickView. There is not a built-in application that is just a standard like PDF document cabinet and storage place. I'm sure that's going to be covered by third-party apps. I've been talking to developers of some of the most popular document storage apps and cloud storage services for the iPhone and for the general internet, and they're all getting into the iPad in a major way. So, for instance, I'm sure that you're going to see the ability to print apps from an app like AirSharing when they come up with their iPad app, because that's something that can be done in other versions. And also, that app is in the business of collecting your documents and letting you do useful things with them.
Right. Now, when you were reading with this, did you find that you could read for a long period of time? Was there any eye strain? Was there any trouble with making that work?
No, not at all. It did take a few seconds sort of get used to the typeface. I'm used to reading my Kindle, and the Kindle has the Kindle is much sharper, much higher contrast, and so my eyes were like, "Hey, wait a minute, this isn't our Kindle." But you get over that really quickly, and within seconds, I'm just in the process of reading a book. I'm not even thinking, "Whoa, isn't this awesome? I'm reading a book on an iPad." I'm just reading a book. The same is true of watching movies on this. One of the sample movies that they put on, one of the movies that they put on for me was Up, a movie that I had never seen before. Because for one reason or another, I just never got around to seeing it, and so I'm just sort of lying on the sofa.
Oh, so this is the one when you were twittering about Up, you were watching it on the iPad.
Exactly.
Ah, dirty, rotten scoundrel.
Yep. I had to be very careful. The other problem was that I was being very careful not to use it on open Wi-Fi networks, just in case it was broadcasting like a device ID that would get killed.
Right.
There is a copy of Twitterific on this, and I'm like, okay, now I'm sure that the makers of Twitterific, or when they put this on the device, they weren't silly enough to set it up so that it says posted by Twitterific for iPad, because that would probably be a problem for a lot of people. But getting back to this, so again, I was just really kind of wanted to see what is it like to launch these apps. You can see these really cool little animations that they do just to sort of show off their sense of style. But within 30 seconds, I was just enjoying this HD movie and just getting into the movie itself. And I wound up just lying there on the sofa watching this entire movie from start to finish right on the iPad.
Wait, does it work for you? We were talking a little bit about how is it really comfortable in a lot of the how-to ads that Apple is showing on their website? Would it be really comfortable to sit that way, to work that way? Did you find this to be comfortable in your couch, with your legs crossed and laying back?
Well, I can't speak for everybody. It's going to be a case-by-case basis. I was lying on the sofa. I had this on my chest. It was like maybe a foot away from my face. It was perfectly fine for me. So I didn't really care about that. It is a pound and a half. It is sort of a large piece of aluminum and glass. So you are going to probably have to prop it up against something if you're going to be holding it for an hour and a half, especially if you're going to be reading books. But the same thing is going to be true of reading an actual hardcover. And hardcover is way more than a pound and a half, and people seem to have gotten by just fine with them.
Were you able to test? I know that a lot of these updates have just been coming out. Have you tested the integration of things like Aperture and iPhoto with the iPad?
I have not, because I only got my copy of iTunes yesterday. Oh, and this is, by the way, here's my unboxing video. just transcoded apparently.
So, and this works pretty much just like the iPhone. So you made your video, you drop it into iTunes, and you just sync it in.
Exactly. Some people were asking me earlier, what am I going to need to free up one of my iTunes seats, so to speak? If I have only 5 seats, I can use protected content. Am I going to have to worry about freeing up one of those seats? It has the same relationship with it has the exact same relationship with your desktop as an iPhone does. It's just another device that you're syncing to. So you can just sync copies to it. So home sharing will work just fine. Another bit of minor awesomeness is that books work via home sharing, so that if you've got your iPad and on your MacBook upstairs, and your significant other has their own iPad that docks to her iMac downstairs, you can simply share the books that you've bought with her, and within the same limitations of the usual home sharing relationship.
That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes I'm surprised when the media industry does anything that makes sense, but that does make sense that someone in the same house would be able to use the same book.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of interesting solutions to this. Sony has been championing a feature of Adobe Digital Editions, which is the ability to sort of donate a bunch of licenses to public libraries, licenses that automatically expire after a couple of weeks. So you can sign out, so to speak, an ebook and load it onto your device and know that you've got a week or 10 days to read it, because after 10 days, that license will expire on the device. The device will simply not allow that book to be read anymore. And now that license becomes available again for the next person who wants to download it and use it. So unfortunately, iBookstore doesn't do anything as cool as that, but I at least appreciate the fact that you can share books with members of your household.
Now, do you find, between the Kindle and between the iPad, do you find yourself still going back to paper?
No, not at all. I made almost a complete break from printed books a couple years ago after I got my Kindle One. As a matter of fact, with the Kindle One, when I first reviewed it, I decided the basis of my review was that, well, it's a cool device. I think they're really underselling it by just describing it as an ebook reader. I think the really good feature of this device is the simple fact that you get a very, very useful mobile web browser, and you get free 3G mobile broadband anywhere in the country, and it's free for life. They should just sell this as a portable version of Google Reader, and then just clean up on that way. I only started reading ebooks on it when I had Mac World Expo to go to about a month later. Mm-hmm. I'd only read like the first 2 chapters of a new biography of Harry Houdini, and I have to think, oh God, am I really going to take this really thick, like just chunk of dead wood with me all the way to California and back? And I said, okay, well, I'll buy the Kindle book. I'll just read it for the week, and then when I get home, I'll go back to the regular book. And those few days of reading the book on the Kindle were all I needed to break myself with the hat. So sort of stop being scared about the differences between reading stuff on the Kindle versus reading them on paper. And now my standard MO is that the first time I want to, when I'm shopping for a book, I'm shopping for the download. I'm not shopping for the paper book anymore.
Well, I know.
It's not a print, but that's it.
For me, writing was that way. Where I there was some kind of break where I just realized it was way more efficient for me to never write on a piece of paper. Just because I just lose it. Whatever. It was always, I just really had to find a way to move. Now, one of the things we're getting a lot of requests for is getting an eye full of Twitterific. Do you have
Twitterific? Well, there was one fellow who was very, very mean to me on Twitter.
You can now tweet. You can now tweet from Twitterific.
That's always been a feature of Twitterific. I hate to break that.
No, but I'm saying
you mean right now? Yes.
Now you can tweet from the you write from the thing. You could say I'm tweeting to you from an iPad.
Well, I'll tell you. Every time in the past week you've seen me tweet from Twitterific, I have been tweeting from the iPad.
Okay, so you didn't have a problem with it telling people.
Exactly. There are a lot of things that you tend to. There's a flurry of emails, constant flurry of emails between myself and Apple, starting the first day saying, okay, so once again, it's okay if I use Twitterific. You're not gonna get bent out of shape because it'll send some sort of ID. There was for instance, I knew not to send any email from the mail client, or at least not to anybody but myself, because the email client will stamp the identifier of the application. The application identifier is sent from iPad, mail for iPad version 1.0. That would have tended to give away the game, wouldn't it have?
I'm afraid that I, just as a joke, I said I did change my stuff on my iPhone, so just to have some fun,
Yes. So Twitterific is not. It's not my absolute favorite app. I mean, it's just a very one-to-one, sort of a literal translation from the iPad app. I mean, it's just so very, very familiar. The difference is that it has a mode that's popular in iPad apps that I really like, which is what I call steering wheel mode, where if you tilt it on its side, now suddenly it's thinking. The thinking is that you're going to be holding it like this, so that you can use one thumb to scroll the list of content, another thumb to scroll the list of sources. In this case, bookmarks and trending topics and things like that.
Interesting.
let me show. Actually, while I'm there, let me see. I'm not sure if I can show this to you. I meant to talk a little bit about how good the keyboard is. The keyboard is really, really good. I thought that it would just be sort of it's good for typing in URLs maybe and very, very short emails.
Right.
But in fact, let me just write a new one. In fact, if you compare the size of the on-screen keyboard to the real one,
it's bigger.
It's actually very, very well. It's not bigger, but it's the width from Q to P here is, I believe, 7 inches. The width of Q to P on here is 7 3/4 inches.
Right.
I find that I can actually touch type very nicely, not with all my fingers, but with my thumb and 3 fingers. There's also an option.
That works really well for me because I never actually learned how to type properly, so it's perfect for me to be able to just because I hunt and peck everything with about 3 fingers. So
hang on. So I'm typing from an angle here, so
right.
Please excuse
the typos.
Yeah.
How long is the full recharge?
The full recharge is pretty quick, 4 hours on the 10-watt battery, 10-watt adapter that comes with the device. If you want to charge it from USB, just with a USB cable, it'll take about twice as long. I was a little bit worried that it was going to be something where you take like 10, 20, 30 hours because this is a pretty serious battery they've got inside here.
Well, the thing is and it sounds like it's with 10 hours of usage, it seems like it's something you can generally use all day, and then at night you plug it in, and you just have to remember to plug it in.
Exactly. That's really not a problem. It has so much battery life that all I wanted out of the battery life was the expectation that I would not have to think about where am I going to be at 2 o'clock and is there going to be a power plug near me when I land at 2 p.m. Over the past week I've come to understand that you really have to knock this around pretty badly in order to drain the battery to 0 before you're really done for the day. It was actually almost a little bit frustrating because I'm doing these tests where I need to get from 100% to 0 and just get that number. But I still have to keep using it just to keep draining the battery to get usage. And I'm like, but I don't want to watch this movie. Right. I don't want to read Google Reader. You got it.
Now the we had another question in the so can you try doing live.twit.tv? Are you able to view us on the iPad?
So
Colleen's in here. She's very interested.
Yeah. I also part of me wishes that there was possible to get more than 9 web pages going at once. This page here, which is when you open a new page, this page, just like this button, just like on the iPhone, will take you sort of to here's all the pages, thumbnails of all the pages that you've opened. If there is an open slot, you can tap that and open a new one, but you only get 9 slots to that. So let's try live. I am unimpressed with the threats that because this does not use Flash, you're kind of hosed. Because I'm finding, there you go. Require Adobe Flash Player, watch Twit Live. Have we found an alternative that will work on the iPhone?
So, Colleen, it just came to that. Do you go to go to live.twit.tv/m.
Ooh, like a speakeasy. See if you go live video stream. He's annoying. One of the things I use websites for so much is for just using a Google Reader, and unfortunately, Google Reader has not activated an iPad edition. When you use that, when you hit that URL, we'll give you the mobile edition, like the iPhone edition. It'll be just all stretched all to hell. So yes, you're seeing.
Wait, what if we turn it to the landscape? Will it fill up nicely?
It will explode. Nope. It won't.
Look at that.
We're lucky.
Can you what happens if you double tap on the screen? I'm
not your damn monkey. Oh, okay.
We gotta know.
It falls down. You see?
Oh, it falls down. Okay, so it's taken over. So it's playing the video there.
Okay, so basically I know what's happening right now. Right now I'm essentially bug testing. This is the first time you've seen it on a live device. You want to make sure.
We can't help it. We had to know.
Actually, that's fine.
You're the well, I would have asked somebody else, but you're the only one that will return my call that has an iPad. That's
Oh, you worked on. Well, I was about to say you worked on Star Wars, but you worked on Episode 1. So.
Oh,
burn! No.
Ow!
For you, Alex, anything.
I gotta grab this thing.
But let me show you what the MLB.com site looks like. And I have screenshots of this that will be appearing in article number 3 tonight or tomorrow morning. This is Flash content. This is Flash content. That's Flash content. And what do you know? It's actually when you load it on the desktop version, when you load it in on an iPad or an iPhone, it simply selects an alternative. Gosh, or at least it did last time. I have 2 screenshots. I've clicked to Flash turned on my desktop, and so you see all the holes where all this content should have been. But it seems to be filling in quite nicely.
Now, is it HTML5? It works fine?
Works just fine.
Right.
Okay, there should be something there. I don't know where it is. I promise you, it was working just fine the other day. Here, as a matter of fact.
Now, can you drag more things onto that? Is it still 4 items on the dock at the bottom?
Yes. No, so you can add more stuff to it. So if I want to add the Marvel Comics app, I just do it the same way I would do on the iPhone. Just grab it, move it like that. I believe the maximum is 5. So let me just there you go. Sorry, 6 rather. And then
look at that.
Yeah, but now imagine how good a sketchbook app is going to be. This is the Autodesk app. As you can see, I've been doing lots of serious artwork here.
I really like what you've done there.
Yes,
a little bit of. I see a Starbucks, the old Starbucks logo, kind of hidden.
It was an experiment that didn't really work.
Does it touch sensitive? Like how pushing harder or lighter, or is it just pretty much a marker?
It's not pressure sensitive.
Okay. And what about the wow, the resolution looks great. Huh. It's guessing. That looks gorgeous.
Well, I did go to art class for almost an entire summer during summer camp.
Now, is there any other apps that really stood out for you?
Unfortunately, there's just a limited number of apps that are available to me. I think that you can see why Apple chose most of the apps that they chose for this demo, because these are all apps that work exceptionally well. And also Apple, they also show off that developers that seem to really get what an iPad app should look like. Through the iPad emulator, some developers over the past month and a half have been sending me builds of stuff that they're working on. And you can sort of see where they're like, oh, dudes, you haven't really broken away from the keyboard and the mouse yet. You're still thinking in terms of a drop-down menu instead of something that should really be attached to that picture you've just added that you want to then modify. They haven't really locked it yet. So I really think that the starter's pistol on the iPad is going to really begin about 4 or 5 months from now. Because right now, all the apps, with very few exceptions, that are going to be available for the store on Saturday, were developed without the privilege of seeing them run on a real live iPad. So I think that in 2 or 3 months, when all these developers have received their iPads and now they're just furiously coding and recoding and doing real testing, that's when you're going to see like the really great apps start to arrive.
What's your opinion of the current did you try putting some that are already iPhone apps that just simply get pixel doubled up? Were they usable? Was it worth it?
It really depends. This is a pixel. You won't be able to really see it on streaming, but it is just pixel doubled. They haven't done anything really special. I thought that they might have. Well, maybe they're going to use some technique to smooth it out a little bit, or maybe they're going to be smart enough to know that. The label of this button is a bit of text. We know what that text is, so instead of just doubling those pixels, we'll actually render that text at the proper resolution. But no, it's just pixel doubled.
Now, if you bought an iPhone app, or if you bought apps for your iPhone, are you going to be able to use those apps, all that money that you invested on your iPhone, on your iPad as well?
Yeah. So they're all linked to your iTunes account,
right?
So that when you've put in the preference, when you've defined your preferences inside this device as, hi, my ID is this, here's my password, then every single bit of content that ID is allowed to access and play will also be accessed and played by the iPad.
Great. Now, did you get any of the other accessories with this?
I got most of the accessories that are available right now. I did get the keyboard dock. I got the table dock.
How about the camera connector?
The camera connector is not available right now, and won't be shipping for another few weeks. Interesting stuff about that. It seems to have a bunch of slick interfaces to it. The Photos app on the iPad has the same functionality as image capture does on your desktop, meaning that once you attach the camera to it, a special feature sort of pops up and shows you thumbnails of all the different photos that are on that device, allowing you to slurp in just the ones that you want. When you're done importing them, then you can just simply bag the entire card or just have it ejected. It will support JPEG or RAW, which is win number one.
Yeah.
Win number two is that these images are simple. And by the way, I'm sorry. It also will import video as well, so you'll be able to play video that you've shot on these devices right on.
Are there any issues around compatibility on those devices? I mean, just really all the major formats. There's a lot of them. I mean, there's AVI and MP4 and M4V and H.264. And are they really support? Do you know if they're really supporting all of them?
Only time will tell. I don't have my hands on the actual thing yet, so I can't really test it out. I'm just told that a variety of it uses the same sort of toolkit on the iPad as it does on the desktop. So you would assume, or I would assume, that any RAW format that's supported by an iPhone will also be supported by this device.
Now, a lot of people are trying to decide whether they should get a 16, a 32, a 64. Do you see this as a transient device that you only need to put a couple things on, or should people really go for the as much memory as they can pack into this thing?
I honestly and truly believe that you're going to want to have the 64 gigabyte model. Yeah. I absolutely believe that because now that I actually had one, the first thing I'm doing is taking a look at the file sizes of everything that's being transacted. And a 16 gigabyte device is going to be perfectly usable, but when you consider that the movie that you downloaded for a 24-hour rental is taking up a gigabyte, when the comic book you just downloaded takes up 150 bytes, you're quickly going to run into the ceiling. You're quickly going to run into a problem where you have to start sacrificing things that you need for things that you want, and vice versa. I think that this device truly shines when you have the ability to just use it for everything. Just have the modus operandi where I have a document, I have a file, I have a piece of media. It is in some way even remotely useful to me. By default, I'm going to put it on the iPad because it's going to be a situation in which I didn't think that I was going to need this 68-page government report. But it seemed to be the sort of thing that I'm sort of into. And then, well, what do you know? It turns out that I actually needed to have this in the field, or it was a very, very good thing that I had this whole rule book with me, or I had this entire old report from 3 months ago with me. That's when the iPad will really earn its spurs for all of its owners.
Now, does it come with there's been talk that Apple was going to try to do some of their own mapping. Does this come with just basically Google Maps, or is it something new, something different, anything?
It's just Google Maps, and that's it. A really, really cool version of Google Maps, I think. This is the Wi-Fi version, so location services doesn't work quite as good as it does. There we go. I've got a map of. I need to go to New York tomorrow, you see, and the rain just shut down all Amtrak service, like that's north of Rhode Island, and so now I have to figure out if I can drive to drive to a later station because I need to be in New York tomorrow. Tomorrow night, there's a possibility that there's going to be an iPad top 10 list, and I'm going to be providing something interesting to make that. And so it's like, life is so hard sometimes. Oh. But yeah, so see, this is a demonstration of how fluid the scrolling is. I wish that the frame rate of this was fast enough to keep up, but you almost feel like a Bond villain that you're just navigating, you're just flying over this area so quickly. Zoom in, it quickly comes in, and within a few seconds, it just re-updates itself unless you've zoomed in too tightly. There are a couple of graphic flourishes, like this page curl. You tap that, and the page lifts up to show you what the settings are. What the settings are for this app. I've just told it to turn on the terrain, and now it just quickly redraws itself. It is just demonically fast, the way that it scrolls through and makes decisions like that.
It's fantastic.
Now, I did think it was interesting that it gives you the search box for Safari. It does give you the option. It's Google by default, but it has one option, and that option is Yahoo, which is, dudes, you haven't used the internet in 3 years, have you? I think we're going to see a Bing search for that pretty quickly.
Right. Now, last question, and I know you have to get up, and we have to, and I think I'm saturated. Speaker quality. When you're sitting there watching it, do you have to have your headphones in? Do you feel like you can just listen to the speakers?
The speakers were another huge and wonderful surprise. I was, you see this tiny little port on the bottom of it. And honest to God, I was over the past couple of weeks, I'm like, okay, things I need to have on hand for the iPad test. I need to have a pair of Bluetooth A2DP speakers so that I can see what the sound will look like. A decent sound will finally sound like over a set of travel speakers. But man alive, they must be using the airspace behind this as a resonator or something, because you're actually getting highs, you're getting bass, you can feel it vibrating through your fingertips when you're holding it and watching a movie. I actually thought it was such a good quality sound that I actually had to do a side-by-side comparison just for my own edification between the iPad and my MacBook, because the sound was that good and that clear. And after a couple of side-by-sides, I had to give the win to the MacBook. But the fact that it was good enough that I would even consider that just shows you how good the quality is. I did watch the entire 90-minute movie of Up without feeling as though I was suffering at all. It's a very, very wide, it's a very, very slick and very, very wide dynamic range. There was never any clipping, never any buzzing. I was really blown away by how good it was. I was expecting nothing, and nonetheless, it was just a solid win.
Now, one more question. A lot of people are worried about, like, this is the first version. Is it going to be stable? Should I wait for the next version to come out? I mean, is this something that's really worth diving into? I mean, from your perspective.
I think that there's this is another thing that I cover in one of those pieces. I think that there's a special kind of user that can use this right now. People like me who need to have some sort of a computer with them pretty much at all times. Anytime I'm outside the office for more than an hour or two, it's really important that I have a computer so that I can file stories or edit stuff that's come back to me or just keep on top of things. People who live an aggressively digital life where all of their entertainment and their media is going to be digital to begin with. So you have a lot of different content that you can put on this right away. If you go into the Apple Store and you try it out, and you don't even need to look at a third-party app to realize that, my God, this will change my life in a really organically great way, then maybe this is for you right now. Otherwise, you might want to wait a few months just to see what new apps come out for it. I think this is going to be a completely different device in a few months when the full range of its abilities is exploited by the App Store. I don't think if you need one right now, I don't think there's a particular reason to wait an entire year for it. Obviously, this is just 1.0 of a device that, if this version is any indication, has a long, long life ahead of it. But it's the standard conundrum. If you keep on waiting for the next great thing to come by, you'll be always waiting for the next great thing.
Right. Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times, thank you so much for giving us a sneak preview. There he is. There's Andy. He snuck by there. So again, this is the iPad revealed. I think probably one of the first videos on the web anywhere, giving people kind of a preview outside of Apple, of course. So I want to thank everyone also who came and tuned in and gave us great questions and gave us some guidance on where we should go with this. And again, Andy, thank you so much.
Hey, it's been a slice. If you want to see that unboxing video for real, go to my YouTube account. I'm Ihnatko, I-H-N as in Nancy, A-T as in Tom. While we were having some fun here, it's been uploaded, and I've just unchecked the box to make it public, so you should be able to see it.
Fantastic.
And once again, check out suntimes.com, because we've already got 2 or 3 pieces up. There are a couple more that are in the hopper. They're going to be drifting in, so by tomorrow morning, I believe the entire package will be up and available.
Great. Thanks, Andy.
It's been a slice.
And for everyone else, this break time is over. Back to dinner.